Hello, class. Welcome to week 14. We are at the tail end of our semester, which means the end is in sight. Now, what I want to do today is I want to take a minute to talk about Project 4 in the prompt and go over some things that I've received questions about, and then I'll move into a discussion of the Ignite presentation. So number one, Project 4 essentially is an interview component coupled with a writing component. Now, if we look at the minimum requirements, we'll see this reflected. So there's a 3 to 4 page double-spaced writing component with a 5 to 10 minute Ignite presentation. Now, what this means is that essentially you are going to write up a discussion or an analysis of 3 different genres from your field, and then talk us through in your presentation your research and what you found and how you found it. Now, let's start with the written component. Essentially, what we're doing here is we are continuing the work that we've been doing all semester, especially in Project 1. In Project 1, I asked you to identify some key genres from your field, for example, an academic article or a patient history form, and we're going to expand that work here. Now, the first step would be and should be to contact an expert in your field, to reach out to them and ask them about some of these genres. And so if you have not already done so, which you should have done, reach out to an expert in your field and ask them about 3 key genres that they use to communicate. Now, what you're going to want to find out is what do they use, how do they use it, why do they use it, what does it allow them to do. All of these questions will facilitate your analysis when it comes to actually writing up your report. Now let's take a look at the prompt itself. So your primary research will require you to interview someone, as I just said. You'll begin collecting data, which would be their responses, analyzing that data by looking at the three genres that you discussed, and drafting a description of your research methods as well as of the genres themselves. Okay. So step 1 would be to conduct the interview, find out about those genres, and then once you have those in hand, we'll begin to analyze them and talk about how and talk about your research. So if we go down to the prompt, locate 3 short texts or sections of text. So for example, if you have a book as one of the genres, you don't need to analyze the entire thing. That represent 3 different genres used in your discourse community. Start by asking your interviewee for examples of the text, read, written, or otherwise used by professionals in the field. For instance, if you're investigating a medical community, you might examine the introduction of a research article, a history form, etc., etc. Your goal is to explain the genres you're analyzing in terms of Beaufort's 5 knowledge domains: genre knowledge, rhetorical knowledge, subject matter, writing process, and discourse community knowledge. So let's go ahead and stop right there for a minute. So when we're talking about Beaufort's 5 knowledge domains, this is kind of the chart that we can think of. So what Anne Beaufort did is she conceptualized a way to think about how expertise works in a field. Now, an expert writer in any field draws upon all of these different categories of knowledge in order to compose something, in order to exchange information. Now, overriding all of these is discourse community knowledge. Now, what this means is you have to be aware of and immersed in the discourse community itself in order to actually discuss the issues that pertain to it. Now, within this overall knowledge base, we have rhetorical knowledge, which is all of the things that affect communication; genre knowledge, how to use the tool that you want to communicate; subject matter, you have to know what you want to talk about; and writing process, how to compose within this field in a way that reflects the values of that field. Now, for you, what this means is when we're thinking about the genres that you use, you might want to frame it in such a way that talks about the discourse community knowledge. So the genre that you're examining, say it's a patient history form, what is it reflecting about the community? What does it tell us about the community? And then genre knowledge, here's where we're talking about the components. How is it function? How is it formed? What does it look like? What is it communicating? How is it written? And how does it facilitate communication within the field? So again, overall, we're looking at discourse community. So the major components: what does it look like? What is it communicating? How is it written? And how does it facilitate communication? So those are the kind of things that we're going to be looking at as we analyze these texts. So returning to our prompt then. Your goal is to explain the genres you're analyzing in those terms. To do so, you'll draft a description of your research methods. So talk to me about who you contacted, how you contacted them, what you asked them, what you said in the interview, and then talk to me about how you found or gathered the examples that you're going to be using. And so, it's in one instance, your interviewee might have said, "Oh, we use this journal a lot." Okay, well, talk to me how you then went and looked at that journal and found a specific article to use as an example for this. So what did you look for? What did you find? Why did you choose it? So all of this will be very first person, very I did this, I found this, I decided to do this. There are no wrong answers here as long as you're being detailed about the steps that you took. And then you will so to do so, you'll draft a description of your research methods and a list of 3 to 4 genre convention themes you developed by coding your data. And so this really also relates to the blogs that you've done, and basically just talk to me about between the 3 genres that you see, what are some similarities, or what are some things that resonate. So for example, from the history form to the article to maybe a memo used within a doctor's office, you might notice that, okay, well, there's the same kind of language being used, for example, or there's research cited in a similar way, things like that. Use your analysis to show what features characterize each genre, how it functions in your community, how it seems to be produced, or how it adds to subject matter in the discourse community. So this is where these things come in. So just to back up real quick, for each genre, you will talk to me about how you found this genre, right? So starting with the interview and then all the way up to the specific genre you're using, the specific example. Any similarities that you saw, as you begin to examine your genres. And then for each genre, you will analyze it by telling me essentially its major features, how it functions in the community, i.e. how it's used, how it's produced, how it's written, how it adds to or uses subject matter. So this would be, how is it contributing to the conversations being had, or how is it exchanging knowledge? And then how it reflects the values of the community. So for example, you wouldn't expect to see very informal language on a patient history form. Okay? So once again, give me your research steps for finding the genre, any kind of similarities you saw between the genres, and then work your way through characteristics of the specific genre, how it's written, how it's produced, how it adds to subject matter, and how it reflects the values. So doing that for each 3 will characterize your 3 to 4 page requirement. And then there's some kind of example down here. Your final write-up, your final draft will reflect the following. This is kind of what I talked through. So your sampling procedures, how did you choose it, how did you find it, the data you collected, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so that is the written portion. So it's essentially a page to a page and a half per genre, where you're just analyzing how it's working. Now, I want to, where are we? Oh yeah, so I want to talk about the Ignite presentation. So let's go back to week 14 real quick so we can see what we have on deck. So you'll see that we have a draft due on Friday. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then our Ignite presentation, I'd like them turned in by Sunday. So I want to talk about how to actually do that. So what your Ignite presentation will do, let me just go back here real quick, and then I will pull up the presentation. Where are we? Okay, so how it seems to be. Okay, so what you're going to do is one of the ways that you could do this, and this is the way that most students do it, is if we go down to, let me pull PowerPoint. What you'll do is you'll create a blank presentation, and you will make slides that will explain your research and the genres, and essentially explain your written component. Now, what I'll do is I will, I believe I still haven't put up an example of an Ignite presentation, but essentially what we're looking for is a series of slides that explain your research process, who your interviewee was, the genres that you found, and how the genres work. And so you'll do that for each one. And so what you'll do is you'll create your presentation. So on here you might have just a little bit of information. So it could say like, oh, interviewee name, time, name, questions asked, whatever. And then your next slide might be, genre 1, title, and then a quick summary. And then the next slide might be, component 1, component 2, component 3, whatever it is, however you want to work through explaining what you found. And then to record it, what you'll do is you'll go up here, record slideshow, record from current slide, or record from beginning. And then, you can see my webcam is pointed behind the desk apparently. And then you'll just record yourself. Now, as you do this, you will, use your microphone or whatever to talk through the slides, and it'll record your voice over that. Then when you save it, you'll have a PowerPoint presentation with voice recording for each slide. That's one way you can do it. Another way you can do it is to use what I use for my videos, which is called Screencast-O-Matic. If you just Google this, it'll allow you to open up a screen recorder, and it'll allow you to talk over your screen as you're recording. So you could create a PowerPoint presentation and then just click through manually and talk through just like I'm doing for these videos. Either way, it doesn't matter to me. For the PowerPoint, what you'll do is you will save it as a PowerPoint and upload it to the Dropbox. For the video, you should be able to upload the video to the Dropbox as well. If not, you can just send me the video, just email it to me, and that works too. So just to be clear, what you're doing in the video is just explaining all of the things that you're writing about. So essentially you're talking through your essay using slides to kind of help illustrate it. And that's kind of where we're going with that. So just to recap, 3 to 4 pages, explaining your research, explaining your methods, analyzing the genres that you chose, and then a presentation that just presents your findings, presents your genres, presents all of the things that you wrote about. So for your slides, it doesn't have to be crazy fancy. You could have, a picture of the person you interviewed if you have access to that. If not, it could totally just be stock photos, like if you're in the medical field, stock photos of a doctor with some information, written in the bubbles over it, just explaining, what you found, what genres you found, summaries, quick summary of what you read, and the major components you saw. And that's kind of what we're looking for. Okay, so if you have any questions on that, I'm happy to answer those. I'm going to look for the sample Ignite presentation that a student turned in a previous semester. I'll see if I can find that, and I'll upload that. Okay, so that is that. What I want to do, if I can click over here we go. Back down to week 14. So what I'll do this week is I will open up the peer review groups for Project 4, so you can upload a rough draft of your written component there, and then complete your video by Sunday. So that is Project 4 in a nutshell. Let's take a look real quick at next week. You see your final draft will be due, and we'll kind of talk about the reflective essay, and then we are in the home stretch. All right, guys, so that is going to do it for me. I do plan on, like I said, especially when I find that sample, I will upload it, and I'll do another video if need be. But if you do have any questions, I know this is kind of a weird assignment. If you do have any questions, I am happy to answer them, and I'd be happy to do another video on this if it would help. So let me know. Do not hesitate to send me any emails, whatever you need, I'm here for. So, all right, guys, have a great day, and I will talk to you later.